He's gonna get the TP out, and they're gonna try and get this high ground. Now you'll see him go back and switch off of this. So this gets San Francisco into a pretty advantageous position. They know though that Once is back in the spawn. They're just trying to get this high ground. Bully fits out of position.
Marvel's been also shifted from his initial spot, and the San Francisco Shock have been able to pull up a little bit of a do-si-do, and they've caught Marvel on the low ground. This is the disaster for Seoul. Arguably the most durable, the centerpiece of their team. The Sigma's been taken out, and Gesture followed right after. They've got supports and DPS and not much more, Matt.
And this is such a good strategy for the San Francisco Shock. You get control of the high ground as fast as possible. Then Ons comes back on the Widow. It puts Fitz in a horrible position. He doesn't have control of the sightline of the point anymore because he's been pushed so far back. And that the tanks can't really go and contest. You have the Hanzo damage coming out from Striker. Really great strategy from San Francisco early on.
Well, what's brilliant about it is that Seoul, they're not dumb. They just couldn't see where the teleporter was that Arns had actually placed down. Jester checked the choke and saw nothing. The Dynasty couldn't help but be caught by surprise by such a strange tactic, and it goes from bad to worse. Gesture gets hooked in and a Discord Orb is liberally applied to his forehead. Violet is traded out, but they get rid of Prophet now, in San Francisco, they are just riding this chaos as much as they can. A kill there on Marvel is big, but a resurrect on Prophet may shift the momentum back.
Yeah, but you're going to get a resurrection that happens on the Choyobin, and you're down tanks for Seoul Dynasty. So you just get so much more value out of this res. Toby about halfway through the res, he has a tank die directly in front of him. He doesn't end up obviously breaking it up and getting the tank. It's got her as Prophet at that point. He's fully committed as Moth bring back Choi, which is just a large amount of value in terms of HP pool they provide.
I mean, we're talking a considerable amount of shield plus that health. So as far as the effective health points you brought back into the game, it's higher value than a Hanzo Resurrect. Prophet though, little flank, fine strike. It's going to be an instant resurrect here. Gravitic Flux to try and bait out those that were rezzing, but Violet has a Transcendence ready to fire off. And the Shock, a brief rest, and now they're back on the road once more. Accretion whirs overhead for Choyobin, but he gets rid of Marvel, who went down below half health while he was suspended in midair. Super low. It's an electric-looking gesture in his face, but the Dynasty couldn't touch the cards. This is not how Seoul want this map to be going. The Shock have 5 minutes, 20 seconds on the clock. That is preposterous.
And to be honest, when the Gravitic Flux comes through from Choi, they also end up using a Dragon Strike, but Striker ends up using it so early that it doesn't really connect and do a ton of damage. That could have been just way cleaner for San Francisco. Fitz, the headshot there on the Striker will take him out. They're trying to use a Dragon. They want this kill to last, but be a Valkyrie from Moth trying to keep everybody up.
Gesture trying to wrap around the side here and slow the Shock down with an instant pick, and again Moth. Oh, the audacity of him. Arns is able to find the headshot on Prophet, almost like Moth baited Prophet out into that challenge. Now Striker steps up after Prophet is brought back into the fight. And that high ground control remains with the Shock for now.
Both teams have Infrasight popped right now, so lots of vision. They know exactly where they're at. Is Prophet just trying to get a pick here. Sonic Arrow to make sure he doesn't get pushed. It'll be Ons taking out Fitz here.
No way. Oh, okay, Super eventually gets taken down. He was slept and then hit with a Biotic Grenade, and the Dragon Strike doesn't create enough space for the Shock to get him out, so they resurrect him instead. The high ground duel is still going. Prophet's hit with a Wayward Arrow as he's forced to drop down now, and from that right-hand side you can see Choyobin looking for an accretion. Gravitic Flux, but Creative's down. That's the lion's share of healing available to the Seoul Dynasty. He has to be brought back into the fight, and he is, but the Dynasty is still playing with 5.
Ons with 2. Striker up on the high ground. Big hook there from Gesture. That Seoul Dynasty seems to have control of the cart. They'll have a nano boost here. Whole Hog and Valkyrie as Fitz comes alive and takes out Ons. You do have this Transcendence, Mitch, with no Gravitic Flux on the other side. You can probably use it a little bit more aggressively.
Choyobin's also close to a Gravitic Flux of his own. Super's put to sleep. Dragon Strike attempted to take his life, but the Transcendence was there from Violet once more, right on time. He has the goods, and now the entirety of the Shock is going to accost Gesture in that left-hand corner. Somehow Toby has to try and keep the cart stalled and keep Marvel alive at the same time, multitasking at his finest, but Prophet, the lone sniper, returns. He goes for a wide flank and finds 3, putting them in the ground, and San Francisco run out of gas once more. But it's Prophet really coming up cash money.
But think about how hard they've worked for this. And there's still 3 minutes on the clock for San Francisco. Like, this hold has to be just incredible from here on out for Seoul Dynasty. And it feels like Seoul Dynasty on this point, Mitch, they've held for an eternity already. It feels like we've spent most of the time here going to point C. And there's still a ton of time on the clock.
But you see that as soon as the shock given opening, a player like Prophet exploits it to its absolute fullest. That was honestly inconceivable the way he was able to save his team in that moment. And Outfit's buoyed forward by confidence after that fight win, but Arns finds the headshot. That's an instant resurrected. Dragon Strike was still loose, and Choikoban is looking worse for wear. Violet actually goes down to the Dragon Strike himself, only to be resurrected into, yes, a lot more oncoming fire. Striker's able to find Prophet, but it's the supports of the shock that are beleaguered. And the rest of San Francisco need to sidebar again and regroup.
So you'll have a Dragon for San Francisco. You'll also have the Transcendence. So you'll have Transcendence for Gravitic Flux. But Seoul Dynasty starting to rally off a few holds here. I tell you what, although for as bad as they've looked for point A and point B, if Seoul gets a hold here, that is a huge swing in momentum.
This is how you win a map that starts so poorly, Matt. Really rallying towards the final moments. Answers brought back into the fight now, and the Dynasty are down to 4 players. Toby has popped the Valkyrie and will be looking for a resurrect, but there's no bodies to safely bring back into the fight, and they keep piling up, one after another. Arn's getting rid of Prophet, and you can see the damage boosted Fitz playing from the high ground, but he can't really contest in his current state, and Striker challenges him anyway. Gesture's hooked instantly. The Discord Orb helps a lot, and here it is. The whole hog keeps him up, and Gesture is held aloft, tantalizingly close to the cart, but he can't contest. And San Francisco finish the attacking round.
We're going to get the nano boost off. When I was watching him come out of the spawn, and he almost gets kind of trapped between both tanks. For a second, I didn't think he was going to get the nano boost onto him, but he's able to. Still doesn't really make that much of a difference. Is Ans shot onto the sentry turret as it comes out of the spawn. See how Ans plays this though. Like how I mentioned, they were able to force Fitz off of the high ground, and he wasn't able to just kind of dominate the point, just control from these types of angles. See, Seoul Dynasty, look, they go underneath, so they're not going to try and take this angle away by forcing at the high ground. It looks like at least early on, they're going to go and try and underneath and deny any line of sight.
San Francisco give a lot of space, and Arns has no idea who's behind him, but Prophet, he missed the shot, and now the rest of the shock have come to the rescue of Arns. Toby goes down as Arns somehow bangs off a damage-boosted body shot, and Violet's there to deal with Prophet and Matt. The Dynasty, sometimes the best laid plans go to waste, and that one fell apart.
Oh, and Ans seemed like he had no clue Prophet was there. The Prophet able to nail some of those shots? That is a completely different first fight. It's Gesture, doing Gesture things. You see him all the way his outline on the map. Just going on these long flanks. Looks like he's going to take that staircase and go up tops. Try and go after Moth and Ans. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
They've rotated Striker up to the high ground as well, though, so Gesture will have his hands full. But more than just the Widowmaker. Hanzo definitely a little bit more lethal to him as the Storm Arrows let him rack off one after another.
He's controlled the high ground now, though. That's huge.
And that forces the shock back into this choke, man. Gesture has the run of the whole barn up there. But Pilot gets rid of him. The Discord Orb blows him up, Matt.
It's just Violet is a flex support, whether it's on the Zen or the Batiste. Just the extra damage he's able to put down is huge. You have an Ana there, you're not able to burst down a Roadhog, right? But when you're playing the Zen, it's much different.
He has more damage than Super right now, does Violet. I mean, by a decent amount. He is functioning. We talked about Roadhog, Matt, functioning as another damage dealer. I mean, Violet is doing just that. Doesn't matter if it's Batiste, Zen, Ana. He's stepping up. And that's in contrast to, obviously, Creative is on Ana. He's just not built the character to do that kind of damage. Much more supportive, much more healing-oriented.
We see Violet do this consistently, though. Put out just damage that when you look at the numbers, like almost doesn't make any sense from the Batiste and the Zen position. So Fitz will use the Infrasight here.
That's the shot.
That's a risky challenge when you know he has the walls.
And still, the San Francisco shock strike back. It looked like a Gravitic Flux from Choikoban to begin the fight. Striker does go down, but Answer's brought back. So the shock a little bit limping here, lacking one player. Still in a strong position now. The Dragon Strike will force Choikoban and Moth to part briefly. And you can see at the top of screen, Striker scrabbling to get back to contest this point.
You'll have a whole hog here, though, for San Francisco. knock players back. Is Soul under a minute here on point A.
Another duel brewing between Arnts and Fitz here, but Choiyoben's the one to fall first. The Gravitic Flux strikes true from Marvel, and Violet hit with a Biotic Grenade. Super now in trouble. Drawn in for a big bear hug. It actually comes out on top. There's no way San Francisco can be turning that around. Arnts versus Marvel, but Striker has it off angle here. He can't interfere with the capture right now. He'd need to get rid of Fitz and then the Sigma on top, and that's a lot to ask for. But Arnts staves him off in the background. You kidding me?
And Choi comes back on the Wrecking Ball just to pile drive and knock players up.
No one can hide.
It'll be the walls here from Fitz, just trying to get an angle, deny some of these players coming out of spawn, but the damage may already been done. San Francisco's going to get another fight, and Violet takes Profit out.
That's not the way you want to start this fight at all. The Resurrect would have to happen. Choiyoben goes down to the whole hog of Gesture, and Super has to lay low with that Biotic Grenade on him, but Fitz has fallen. Again, they keep going down. The Dynasty need to find a way to surge forward onto the point, but Arnts was brought back into the fight too. Now it's Gesture and Marvel huddling close for comfort to try and capture this point, and they get Super. What a critical hook. Gesture with the Nano Boost now, and he can stave up most of the Dragon Strike damage. He's just looking to stand on the point right now and try and get this one under Soul's control. Profit also comes in, and the reinforcements for the Dynasty outnumbered the Shock. They have the numbers, and now they have the payload.
That is so close, though. I mean, it's just a combination of players for the San Francisco Shock. Arnts with the snipes. Choi coming back on the Wrecking Ball. Violet on the Zen, able to pick off some players. He also had Violet at one point, just kind of go on a flying Papa Transcendence to stay alive. Unbelievable defense there early on from San Francisco. They put themselves in a great position here on Kings Row.
That was almost an inconceivable scene. The Dynasty show that they're made of more than just skill and some true grit to boot. And the San Francisco, the audacity of this move. Looks like they set up a poison mine, so it's likely Fitz is aware that there was some sort of flank in the works.
And no ults here for San Francisco, just the Valkyrie.
Super slept right now. Gesture on a big old flank here. Will they be ready for the Roadhog? It's a double Biotic Grenade hit from Creative. Another big one, and Super can't take a breather. Well, it can, but it doesn't really work. He just gets the health back. And Mock is going to fall here. This is what the Dynasty are looking for. Now a chance to build some momentum, and Profit doubles down. This is what they were looking for.
Yeah, and Moth gets hit with that Biotic Grenade because he goes up a little bit forward to try and heal Super, so he doesn't even bother popping Valkyrie. No reason to waste the Valkyrie there. They use a lot of ultimates at the end of that fight, thinking they can take point A and hold that on defense and get a full hold. Does not work out in their favor. They'll give up point B here. Does not look like they're going to be able to contest. Marvel gets out in front, puts down some damage, denies any chance of that for San Francisco. Now if you're the Shock... And now if you're the Shock, though, you got to push forward, Mitch. You got to get a little bit closer here, play enough front defense.
A nightmare start to the round for the Dynasty, but now they're back in a position where they can really threaten San Francisco's time bank. Super sheepishly there, just ducks out towards the right as the Widow shots whiz overhead, and he's going to try and wrap around briefly. Dragon Strike there, a lot of Solar playing inside that right-hand side room, and they catch Gesture out. Another sleep down. There's no capitalization. And Dynasty will be finally sent back to spawn. They built some good momentum. They themselves will now have to regroup.
Still, they're so far behind, or going to be so far behind in the time bank. I know the next upcoming fight you'll have the Gravitic Flux, no support ultimate for Soul Dynasty to be able to live through that with the extra damage. You also have Moth with the Valkyrie, potentially adding like some damage boost and also healing on through that to keep everybody up. You win a fight like that for San Francisco, we're looking at the Soul Dynasty with a cart in this type of position with like 40 seconds on the clock to win the map.
So much to play for here for the Dynasty. Going to halftime 0-2 down in a first of 4. It would be a disaster. They lose Gesture early on, but that's the trade. Profit's able to find Super. Both Roadhogs taking a lot of damage. Moth goes down. He was punished for going for the Resurrect here. And there's a window, a brief one, but Fitz opens it a little bit wider. A chance for the Dynasty to surge forward, but no one's on the cart really pushing it right now. Marvel sets himself forward. Fitz has to do the dirty work here.
And nobody wants to go around the corner with the risk of Arnts or even Violet putting down some damage. So they have to wait just a second. See, trying to get everybody back. They can't even put the cart progress on right now. They know Gesture's coming on this flank too, does the Shock. They have to use a nano boost on him. He gets created out of his taking the breather.
That keeps Gesture alive though, and he hasn't. Oh my god. He has a whole hog here, and Arns almost found himself on the wrong side of that scrap gun. Here comes the Gravitic Flux, and Arns is not able to get out of it here. He will be healed up by Moth, and Violet has a Transcendence on the ground. 15 seconds left of the round, and the Dragon Strike, it gets eaten by Marvel's Kinetic Grasp. That's a huge advantage for the Dynasty, but can they press it further? Prophet goes down, Striker and Moth at the top of your screen, folding back into their spawn, and Super interrupts the increasing from Marvel. He goes down, the San Francisco Shock with the players now, and Toby can do nothing but try and push the card on its own. That, sadly, is just not going to cut it. A San Francisco Shock have the Dynasty reeling 2 maps to 0. And that is not how the Dynasty, the upstarts, the challengers wanted to begin this series.